Estate fam. So this is a recording of pages 68 through 82 of The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I'm re-recording this because our stream with Professor Jordan Camenker got unexpectedly and unplannedly shut off by the Ethernet cord getting kicked out of the socket. So we are re-recording these pages to add to the playlist on YouTube for posterity. This content contains topics regarding depression, anxiety, suicide, and loss. And also there are some words in this portion of the book that I am going to self-censor. There are some words that I will not say. So I will just, adjust those for my own comfort. Just a word of warning on that as well. Starting at the top of page 68. Fine. So Nora just stood there while Mrs. Elm picked up her book again. It seemed unfair to Nora that Mrs. Elm could read the lives without falling into them. Time went by. Although technically, of course, it didn't. Nora could have stayed there forever without getting hungry or thirsty or tired, but she could, it seemed, get bored. As time stood still, Nora's curiosity about the lives around her slowly grew. It turned out to be near impossible to stand in a library and not want to pull things from the shelves. Why can't you just give me a life you know is a good one? She said suddenly. That is not how this library works. Nora had another question. Surely, in most lives, I will be asleep now, won't I? In many, yes. So what happens then? You sleep, and then you wake up in that life. It's nothing to worry about. But if you are nervous, you could try a life where it's another time. What do you mean? Well, it's not nighttime everywhere, is it? What? There are an infinite number of possible universes in which you live. Are you really saying they all exist in Greenwich Mean Time? Of course not, said Nora. She realized she was about to cave in and choose another life. She thought of the humpback whales. She thought of the unanswered message. I wish I had gone to Australia with Izzy. I would like to experience that life. Very good choice. What? It's a very good life? Oh, I didn't say that. I merely feel that you might be getting better at choosing. So it's a bad life? I didn't say that either. And the shelves sped into motion again, then stopped a few seconds afterwards. Ah, yes, there it is, said Mrs. Elm, taking a book from the second to bottom shelf. She recognized it instantly, which was odd, seeing that it looked almost identical to the others around it. She handed it to Nora, affectionately, as if it was a birthday gift. There you go. You know what to do. Nora hesitated. What if I'm dead? Sorry? I mean, in another life. There must be other lives in which I died before today. Mrs. Elm looked intrigued. Isn't that what you wanted? Well, yes, but you have died an infinite number of times before today. Yes. Car accident, drug overdose, drowning, a bout of fatal food poisoning, choking on an apple, choking on a cookie, choking on a vegan hot dog, choking on a non-vegan hot dog. Every illness it was possible for you to catch or contract. You have died in every way you can, at any time you could. So I could open a book and just die? No, not instantaneously. As with Voltaire, the only lives available are here. Here are, well, lives. I mean, you could die in that life, but you won't have died before you enter the life, because this midnight library is not one of ghosts. It is not a library of corpses. It is a library of possibility. And death is the opposite of possibility. Understand? I think so. and Nora stared at the book she had been handed. Conifer green, smooth textured, again embossed, with the broad and frustratingly meaningless title, My Life. She opened it and saw a blank page, so she moved to the next page and wondered what was going to happen this time. Quote, the swimming pool was a little busier than normal. And then she was there. Next chapter, entitled Fire. She gasped. The sensations were sudden. The noise and the water. She had her mouth open and she choked. The tang and the sting of salt water. She tried to touch her feet on the bottom of the pool, but she was out of her depth, so she quickly slipped into a breaststroke mode. A swimming pool, but a saltwater one. Outdoor, beside the ocean, carved seemingly out of the rock that jutted out of the coastline. She could see the actual ocean just beyond. There was sunshine overhead. The water was cool, but given the heat of the air above her, the cool was welcome. Once upon a time, she had been the best 14-year-old female swimmer in Bedfordshire. She had won 2 races in her age category at the National Junior Swimming Championships, freestyle 400 meters, freestyle 200 meters. Her dad had driven her every day to the local pool, sometimes before school as well as after. But then, while her brother rocked out on his guitar to Nirvana, she traded lengths for scales and taught herself how to play not just Chopin, but classics like Let It Be and Rainy Days and Mondays. She also began, before the labyrinths were even a figment of her brother's imagination, to compose her own music. But she really hadn't gone off swimming, just the pressure around it. She reached the side of the pool. She stopped and looked around. She could see a beach at a lower level in the distance, curving around in a semicircle to welcome the sea, lapping on its sand. Beyond the beach, inland, a stretch of grass. A park complete with palm trees and distant dog walkers. Beyond that, houses and low-rise apartment blocks and traffic sliding by on the road. She had seen pictures of Byron Bay, and it didn't look quite like this. This place, wherever it was, seemed a little bit more built up. Still surferish, but also urban. Turning her attention back to the pool, she noticed a man smile at her as he adjusted his goggles. Did she know this man? Would she welcome the smile in this life? Having no idea, she offered the smallest possible of polite smiles in return. She felt like a tourist with an unfamiliar currency, not knowing how much to tip. Then an elderly woman in a swimming cap smiled at her as she glided through the water towards her. "Morning, Nora," she said, not breaking her stroke. It was a greeting that suggested Nora was a regular here. "Morning," Nora said. She stared out at the ocean to avoid any awkward chatting. A flock of morning surfers, speck-sized, swam on their boards to greet large sapphire blue waves. This was a promising start to her Australian life. She stared at her watch. It was a bright orange, cheap-looking Casio, a happy-looking watch, suggestive, she hoped, of a happy-feeling life. It was just after 9 a.m. here. Next to her watch was a plastic wristband with a key on it. So this was her morning ritual here, in an outdoor swimming pool beside the beach. She wondered if she was here alone. She scanned the pool, hopefully for any sign of Izzy, but none was there. She swam some more. The thing she had once loved about swimming was the disappearing. In the water, her focus had been so pure that she thought of nothing else. Any school or home worries vanished. The art of swimming, she supposed, like any art, was about purity. The more focused you were on the activity, the less focused you were on everything else. You kind of stopped being you and became the thing that you were doing. But it was hard to stay focused when Nora noticed her arms and chest ached. She sensed it had been a long swim and was probably time to get out of the pool. She saw a sign. Bronte Beach swimming pool. She vaguely remembered Dan, who had been in Australia in his gap year, talking about this place, and the name had stuck. Bronte Beach. Because it was so easy to remember. Jane Eyre on a surfboard. But here was confirmation of her doubt. Bronte Beach was in Sydney, but it most definitely wasn't part of Byron Bay. So that meant one of two things. Either Izzy, in this life, wasn't in Byron Bay, or Nora wasn't with Izzy. She noticed she was tanned, a mild caramel all over. Of course, the trouble was she didn't know where her clothes were, but then she remembered the plastic wristband with a key on it. 57. Her locker was 57. So she found the changing rooms and opened the squat square locker and saw that her taste in clothes as well as watches was more colorful in this life. She had a t-shirt with a pineapple print on it, a whole cornucopia of pineapples, the pink-purple denim shorts, and slip-on checked pumps. What am I, she wondered? A children's TV presenter? Sunblock? Hibiscus-tinted lip balm? No other makeup as such. As she pulled on her t-shirt, she noticed a couple of marks on her arm. Scar lines. She wondered momentarily if they had been self-inflicted. There was also a tattoo just below her shoulder, a phoenix in flames. It was a terrible tattoo. In this life, she clearly had no taste. But since when did taste have anything to do with happiness? She dressed and pulled out a phone from her shorts pocket. This was an older model than her married and living in a pub life. Luckily, a thumb reading was enough to unlock it. She left the changing rooms and walked along a beachside path. It was a warm day. Maybe life was automatically better when the sun shone so confidently in April. Everything seemed more vivid, more colorful and alive than it had done in England. She saw a parrot, a rainbow lorikeet, perched on the top of a bench, being photographed by a couple of tourists. A surfy-looking cyclist passed by, holding an orange smoothie, smiling and literally saying, "Good day." This was most definitely not Bedford. Nora noticed something was happening to her face. Could she be smiling? And naturally, not just because someone expected her to. Then she noted a piece of graffiti on a low wall which said, "The world is on fire," and another that said, "One Earth equals one chance." And her smile faded. After all, a different life didn't mean a different planet. So she had no idea where she lived or what she did or where she was meant to be heading after the swimming pool, but there was something quite freeing about that. To be existing without any expectation, even her own. As she walked, she Googled her own name and added Sydney to see if it brought up anything. Before she scanned the results, she glanced up and noticed a man walking on the path towards her, smiling. A short, tanned man with kind eyes and long, thinning hair and a loose ponytail with a shirt that wasn't buttoned correctly. "Hey, Nora." "Hey," she said, trying not to sound confused. "What time you start today?" How could she answer that? Oh, crap, I've totally forgotten." He laughed, a little laugh of recognition, as if her forgetting was quite in character. "I saw it on the roster. I think it might be 11. 11 a.m.? Kind Eyes laughed. "What have you been smoking? I want some." "Ha, nothing," she said stiffly. "I have not been smoking anything. I just skipped breakfast." "Well, see you this Arvo." "Yes, at the place. Where is it again?" He laughed frowningly and kept walking. Maybe she worked on a whale sightseeing cruise that operated out of Sydney. Maybe Izzy did too. Nora had no idea where she, or they, lived, and nothing was coming up on Google. But away from the ocean seemed the right direction. Maybe she was very local. Maybe she had walked here. Maybe one of the bikes she saw locked up outside the pool cafe had been hers. She rummaged in her tiny clasp wallet and felt her pockets for a key, but there was only a house key. No car keys, no bike keys. So was it a bus or by foot? The house key had no information on it at all, so she sat on a bench with the sun beating hard on the back of her neck and checked her texts. There were names of people she didn't recognize. Amy, Rodri, Bella, Lucy P, Camilla, Luke, Lucy M. Who are these people? And a rather unhelpful contact titled simply work. And there was only one recent message from work, and it said, "Where are you?" There was one name she recognized, Dan. Her heart sank as she clicked on his most recent message. Quote, "Hey Nor, hope Oz is treating you well. This is going to sound either corny or creepy, but I'm going to go all out and tell you. I had a dream the other night about our pub. It was such a good dream. We were so happy." Anyway, ignore that weirdness. The point of this is to say, guess where I'm going in May? Australia. First time in over a decade. Am coming with work. I'm working with MCA. It would be great to catch up, even for a coffee if you're around. D. Kiss. It was so strange she almost laughed, but she coughed instead. Maybe she wasn't quite so fit in this life now that she thought about it. She wondered how many Dans there were in the world, dreaming of things they would hate if they actually got them, and how many were pushing other people into their delusional idea of happiness. Instagram seemed to be the only social media she had here, and she only seemed to post pictures of poems on it. She took a moment to read one, entitled Fire. Every part of her that changed, that got scraped off because of schoolyard laughter or the advice of grown-ups long gone, and the pain of friends already dead, she collected those bits off the floor like wood shavings, and she made them into fuel, into fire, and burned, bright enough to see forever. This was troubling, but it was, after all, just a poem. Scrolling through some emails, she found one to Charlotte, a Salid band flautist with earthy humor, who'd been Nora's only friend at String Theory before she had moved back up to Scotland. "Hi, Charles. I hope all is fine and dandy. Pleased the birthday went so well. Sorry I couldn't be there. All is well in sunny Sydney. Have finally moved into a new place. It's right near Bronte Beach. Beautiful. Lots of neighborhood cafes and charm. I also have a new job. I go swimming in saltwater pool every morning, and every evening I drink a glass of Australian wine in the sunshine. Life is good. Address: 229 Darling Street, Bronte, NSW 2024, Australia. Nora. Kiss." Something was rotten. The tone of vague, distant perkiness, as if writing to a long-lost aunt, the lots of neighborhood cafes and charm, as though it was a trip advisor review. She didn't speak to Charlotte, or indeed anyone like that. There was also no mention of Izzy. Have finally moved into the new place? Was that we have, or I have? Charlotte knew of Izzy. Why not mention her? She would soon find out. Indeed, 20 minutes later, she was standing in the hallway of her apartment, staring at 4 bags of rubbish that needed taking out. The living room looked small and depressing. The sofa tatty and old. The place smelt slightly moldy. There was a poster on the wall for the video game Angel, and a vape pen on the coffee table with a marijuana leaf sticker on it. A woman was staring at a screen, shooting zombies in the head. "Hi," Nora said. The woman turned. She was not Izzy. She had sleepy eyes and a vacant expression, as if the zombies she was shooting had slightly infected her. She was probably a perfectly decent person, but was not anymore. Nora had never seen her in her life. She smiled. "Hey, how's that new poem coming along?" Oh, yeah, it's coming along really well, thanks. Nora walked around the flat in a bit of a daze. She opened a door at random and realized it was the bathroom. She didn't need the toilet, but she needed a second to think. So she shut the door and washed her hands and stared at the water spiral down the plug hole the wrong way. She glanced at the shower. The dull yellow curtain was dirty in a vague student house kind of way. That's what this place reminded her of, a student house. She was 35 and in this life living like a student. There was a magazine on the floor next to the bin, National Geographic. The one with the black hole in its cover that she had been reading in another life, on the other side of the world, only yesterday. She sensed it was her magazine, given that she had always liked reading it and had been known, even in recent times, to buy it on the occasional spontaneous whim, as no online version ever did the photos justice. She remembered being 11 years old and looking at photos of Svalbard, the Norwegian archipelago in the Arctic, in her dad's copy. It had looked so vast and so desolate and so powerful, and she wondered what it would have been like to be among it, like the scientist explorers in the article, spending their summer doing some kind of geological research. She cut out the pictures and they ended up on the pinboard in her bedroom. And for many years at school, she had tried hard at science and geography just so she could be like the scientists in the article and spend her summers among the frozen mountains and fjords as puffins flew overhead. But after her dad died, and after reading Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil, she decided that philosophy seemed to be the only subject that matched her sudden inward intensity, and B, she wanted to be a rock star more than a scientist anyway. After leaving the bathroom, she returned to her mysterious flatmate. She sat on the sofa and waited for a few moments, watching. The woman's avatar got shot in the head. Piss off, you zombie F-face, the woman snarled happily at the screen. She picked up the vape pen. Nora wondered how she knew this woman. She was assuming they were flatmates. I've been thinking about what you said. What did I say? Nora asked. About doing some cat sitting. You know, you wanted to look after that cat. Oh, yeah, sure, I remember. Bad effing idea, man. Really? Cats. What about them? They've got a parasite. Toxoplasmosis something. Nora knew this. She had known this since she was a teen, doing her work experience at Bedford Animal Rescue Center. Toxoplasmosis. That's it. Well, I was listening to this podcast, right? And there's this theory that this international group of billionaires infected the cats with it so that they could take over the world by making humans dumber and dumber. I mean, think about it. There are cats everywhere. I was talking to Jared about this, and Jared said, Jojo, what are you smoking? And I was like, the stuff you gave me. And he said, yeah, I know. And then he told me about the grasshoppers. Grasshoppers? Yeah, did you hear about the grasshoppers? Jojo asked. What about them? They are killing themselves because this parasite worm grows inside them to become like a full-grown aquatic creature. And as it grows, it takes over the brain function of the grasshopper. So the grasshopper thinks, hey, I really like water. And so they dive bomb into water and die. And it's happening all the time. Google it. Google grasshopper suicide. Anyway, the point is the elites are killing us via cats, and so you shouldn't be near them. Nora couldn't help thinking how different this life was to her imagined version of it. She had pictured herself and Izzy on a boat near Byron Bay, marveling at the magnificence of humpback whales, and yet here she was in a small, pot-scented apartment in Sydney with a conspiracy theorist as a flatmate who wouldn't even let her near a cat. What happened to Izzy? Nora realized she had just asked the question out loud. Jojo looked confused. Izzy? Your old friend Izzy? Yeah. The one who died? The words came so fast, Nora could hardly absorb them. What? The car crash girl. What? Jojo looked confused as curls of smoke wisped across her face. You okay, Nora? She held out the joint. Want a toke? No, I'm okay, thanks. Jojo chuckled. Makes a change. Nora grabbed her phone, went online, typed Isabel Hirsch into the search box, then clicked news. There it was, a headline, a picture of Izzy's tanned face, smiling. British woman killed in NSW road collision. New South Wales, I think, is NSW. A woman, 33, was killed and 3 people hospitalized south of Coffs Harbour last night when the woman's Toyota Corolla collided with a car traveling in the opposite direction on the Pacific Highway. The female driver, identified as British citizen Isabel Hirsch, died at the scene of the accident just before 9 p.m. She was the only person in the Toyota. According to her flatmate, Nora Seed, Isabel had been driving from Sydney back to Byron Bay to attend Nora's birthday party. Isabel had recently started working for Byron Bay whale watching tours. I'm totally devastated, Nora said. We traveled to Australia together only a month ago, and Izzy had planned to stay here for as long as possible. She was such a force of life that it feels impossible to imagine the world without her in it. She was so excited about her new job. This is so unbearably sad and hard to comprehend. The passengers of the other car all suffered injuries, and the driver, Chris Dale, had to be airlifted to the hospital in Baringa. New South Wales police are asking anyone who witnessed the collision to come forward to help with their inquiries. Oh my goodness, she whispered to herself, feeling faint. Oh, Izzy. She knew that Izzy wasn't dead in all her lives, or even in most of them, but in this one, it was real, and the grief Nora felt real too. The grief was familiar and terrifying and laced with guilt. Before she could properly access or process anything, the mobile rang. It said, work. A man's voice, a slow drawl. Where are you? What? You were meant to be here half an hour ago. Where? The ferry terminal. You're selling tickets. I've got the correct number, right? This is Nora Seed I'm talking to. It's one of them, sighed Nora as she gently faded away. All right, cool. So that's pages 68 to 82 of the Midnight Library. Thank you for watching and listening, and stay tuned for the rest of the book throughout the rest of this spring semester. And in future semesters, look forward to other titles that we'll be reading together and other coinciding programming that we'll incorporate into Campus Read. All right, thank you. Bye.